The cathedral held its breath. 300 guests sat in gilded pews, draped in silk and judgment. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across marble floors as whispers slithered through the sacred space like poison. At the altar he waited. Andrea Volpini, billionaire, alleged cripple. The most feared name whispered across Europe's underworld, reduced, in their eyes, to a man who couldn't stand for his own wedding. His wheelchair gleamed black against the white altar cloth. His tailored suit cost more than most guests' homes. And his hands, those hands marked with Italian script across every knuckle, rested motionless on the armrests. "Poverino," someone murmured. "Poor thing." Soft laughter rippled through the back rows. Then the doors opened. She appeared. Renata Valli walked forward in ivory lace, chin raised, eyes fixed on the man everyone pitied. Each step silenced another whisper. Each breath carried her closer to a fate no one understood. Not even her. Andrea's expression remained unreadable. His dark eyes tracked her movement with the patience of a predator who had already won. But something flickered beneath the stillness. Something that made the candles seem to dim. Something that whispered, "Nothing here is what it seems." Sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Sometimes love begins in the space between mockery and truth. And sometimes, the ones who laugh first cry hardest in the end. Please like, share, and subscribe. 6 weeks earlier, the rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Renata stood at her father's hospital window, watching Rome drown. Behind her, machines beeped their mechanical prayers. Her father's breathing rattled like wind through dead leaves. The debt collectors came again. Her mother whispered from the corner. "They said we have 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Renata pressed her palm against the cold glass. 2 weeks to find 400,000 euros. 2 weeks to save her father's treatment. 2 weeks before everything collapsed. There might be a way. She turned. Her Uncle Marco stood in the doorway, his coat dripping onto linoleum. His face carried the expression of a man about to suggest something unforgivable. "What way?" He stepped inside, closed the door. "The Volpini family needs something. Something only our bloodline can provide." Renata's stomach tightened. Everyone knew the Volpini name. Legitimate businesses spanning 3 continents. Whispered connections to powers that operated outside the law. And at the center of it all, Andrea Volpini, the reclusive heir who'd survived an assassination attempt 5 years ago. The attempt that had left him paralyzed. What could they possibly need from us? Marco's eyes flickered to her father's unconscious form. A wife. Later that night, the cafe was empty except for shadows. Renata sat across from a man she'd never met. His name was Lorenzo, Andrea's right hand, his voice, his public face. Everything Andrea apparently could no longer be. "Let me be clear," Lorenzo said, stirring espresso he wouldn't drink. "This is a strategic arrangement. The Volpini family requires an alliance with bloodlines connected to the old Sicilian families. Your grandmother was a Ferrante. That makes you valuable. I'm a person, not a commodity. In our world, Signorina, the distinction is often irrelevant." Renata's hands trembled beneath the table. She pressed them against her thighs until the shaking stopped. "What exactly would be required of me?" Lorenzo slid a folder across the table. Inside, medical bills marked paid, future treatment plans, a deed to her parents' home transferred free of debt. "You marry Andrea Volpini. You remain his wife for a minimum of 3 years. You appear publicly as his devoted partner. In exchange, your family's debts vanish. Your father receives the best care in Europe. And you," he paused, "you receive a generous monthly allowance and, upon completion of the contract, a settlement of 5 million euros. 5 million. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over. Enough to save everyone she loved. And the personal expectations?" Lorenzo's expression didn't change. "Andrea is a private man. He has no interest in forcing intimacy. Your role is primarily public. Appearances, events, the projection of a united front." He leaned back, He is not cruel, Signorina. He is simply practical. Renata stared at the folder, at her father's name on those medical bills. When would this happen? 6 weeks. The wedding will be held at the Volpini Estate Cathedral. 300 guests. Full traditional ceremony. Lorenzo stood, buttoning his jacket. You have 48 hours to decide. He left her alone with the weight of impossible choices. 2 days later, she said yes. Her mother wept. Her father, in a rare moment of consciousness, squeezed her hand with what little strength remained. You don't have to do this, Tesoro. Yes, Renata whispered. I do. She signed the contract in a sunlit office that smelled of old money and older secrets. Lorenzo witnessed. A lawyer notarized. And somewhere in a mansion on the outskirts of Rome, a man she'd never met became her future. She wouldn't see Andrea until the wedding day. That was part of the arrangement. Wedding day morning. The dress arrived at dawn. Renata stood before the mirror in the bridal suite, surrounded by strangers who fussed with lace and whispered behind manicured hands. They were Andrea's people. Stylists, attendants, women whose job was to transform her into something worthy of a Volpini bride. None of them looked her in the eye. Such a shame, one murmured, adjusting the train. A girl this beautiful, wasted on. Basta, a sharp voice cut through. An older woman, severe, elegant, clearly in charge, silenced the room with a look. She is to be the lady of this house. You will speak of her with respect. The others fell silent. The older woman approached Renata, her dark eyes assessing. I am Donna Lucia. I managed this household for Andrea's mother. Now I manage it for him. She adjusted a pearl at Renata's throat. You are nervous. I've never met him. Few have. Truly met him, Lucia's weathered hands smoothed the lace at Renata's shoulders. They see the chair. They see the silence. They think they understand. Her voice dropped. They understand nothing. Renata's pulse quickened. What should I understand? Lucia stepped back, her expression unreadable. That you are not marrying a victim, child. You are marrying a volcano that has learned to sleep. Before Renata could respond, the doors opened. It was time. The cathedral ceremony. 300 guests packed the Volpini Cathedral. Politicians. Business leaders. Faces Renata recognized from newspapers and whispered scandals. They sat in ascending rows of judgment, draped in designer clothes and barely concealed contempt. The music began. Renata walked alone. No father to give her away, he was too weak. No family by her side, they weren't invited. Just her, the endless aisle, and the man waiting at its end. The whispers started immediately. Can you believe she's actually doing this? Desperate. Obvious. Pathetic. He can't even stand to greet her. How humiliating. Gold digger. Watch. She'll have his money and be gone within a year. Renata kept walking. The altar approached. And then she saw him. The first glimpse. Andrea Volpini sat in a wheelchair of polished black steel. His suit was midnight charcoal, tailored so precisely it looked painted onto his frame. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Renaissance paintings. Sharp jaw, aquiline nose, eyes the color of aged whiskey. And his hands. Dio, his hands. Italian script crawled across every knuckle. Honor. Sang. Silenzio. Mort. Honor. Blood. Silence. Death. The ink disappeared beneath his cuffs, promising more beneath the surface. More secrets. More history. More danger. He didn't move as she approached. He simply watched. His stillness was absolute. Predatory. The kind of calm that preceded storms. Renata reached the altar. She looked down at him. He looked up at her. And something passed between them that the guests couldn't see. A current electric and undeniable. Recognition without reason. Connection without context. Benvenuta, Signora Volpini, he said quietly. Welcome. His voice was low, controlled. A blade wrapped in velvet. Behind them, someone laughed. Andrea's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His tattooed knuckles flexed against the wheelchair arm. but his eyes never left hers. The ceremony. The priest spoke of unity, of sacred bonds, of promises before God. Renata barely heard him. She was too aware of Andrea's presence. The subtle scent of sandalwood and something darker. The way his gaze tracked her every breath. The complete absence of pity or apology in his expression. He wasn't embarrassed by the chair. He wasn't ashamed of his condition. He simply existed, unapologetically, as if the wheelchair were a throne rather than a prison. Do you, Andrea Salvatore Volpini, take this woman? I do. No hesitation. No inflection. Just certainty. The priest turned to Renata. And do you, Renata Maria Valli, take this man? She looked at him, at the ink on his hands, at the power coiled beneath his stillness. I do. The rings were exchanged. His fingers were warm against hers. Strong. Steady. The Italian script on his knuckles brushed her skin as he slid the band into place. You may kiss the bride. The cathedral held its breath. Andrea reached up. His palm cupped her jaw with terrifying gentleness. He drew her down toward him slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was brief, soft, almost chaste, but something burned beneath it. Promise, possession, warning. When he released her, his thumb traced her lower lip. Mia Mogli, he murmured. My wife. The guests erupted in polite applause, but their eyes told a different story. The Volpini estate evening. The reception hall dripped with opulence. Crystal chandeliers, gold-leafed ceilings, a string quartet playing Vivaldi, while servers glided between marble columns carrying champagne worth more than Renata's childhood home. She sat beside Andrea at the head table, acutely aware of every eye upon them. They're staring, she murmured. They always stare. His voice remained low, conversational. It's why we give them something to see. His hand moved beneath the table, found hers, interlaced their fingers. The gesture looked romantic, felt like strategy. Smile, he said. The Marchetti family is watching. They've been looking for weakness since my accident. Renata smiled. Her cheeks ached with the falseness of it. The first challenge. The first guest approached during the main course. Senator Johnny Marchetti. Silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the smile of a shark who'd spotted blood. Andrea, amico mio. He clasped Andrea's shoulder with exaggerated warmth. Such a beautiful bride. However did you convince her? The insult was barely veiled. Renata's spine stiffened, but Andrea simply smiled. Some men must chase, Senator. Others need only wait. His tattooed hand remained visible on the armrest. The ink seemed to darken in the candlelight. Honor, sang. Silenzio. Mort. Marchetti's smile faltered. Yes, well. He turned to Renata, his gaze traveling down her form with unconcealed assessment. If you ever tire of waiting, my door is always open. The silence that followed was absolute. Andrea's expression didn't change. His posture didn't shift. But something in the air thickened. Something that made Marchetti take an unconscious step backward. Senator. Andrea's voice dropped to barely a whisper. You have exactly 3 seconds to apologize to my wife. After that, I'll have Lorenzo escort you out. After that. He tilted his head. Well, let's not find out. Marchetti paled. My apologies, Signora Volpini. A poor joke. He retreated quickly. Too quickly for a man who didn't believe the threat. Later that night. That was impressive. They were alone now in the private study adjoining the reception hall. Renata stood by the window. Andrea remained in his chair near the fireplace. The celebration continued without them, muffled by mahogany doors. What was? He asked. The senator. I've never seen a man flee so quickly from someone who can't. She stopped. The words tasted wrong. Can't what? Stand? Walk? Chase him down and break his legs? His tone held no bitterness, only dark amusement. I didn't mean. You did. He wheeled closer. The firelight caught the ink along his wrist. More script, disappearing beneath his sleeve. Everyone means it. The chair is the first thing they see, the last thing they forget. Renata turned to face him fully. Does that bother you? He considered the question. His fingers drummed against the armrest. A slow, deliberate rhythm. Once it might have. Now, a ghost of a smile. It's useful. Useful how? But he didn't answer. Instead, he changed subjects with the precision of a blade changing targets. You were brave today, walking through that crowd, ignoring their whispers. His eyes held hers. Most would have faltered. I don't have the luxury of faltering. No. Something shifted in his expression. Softened, almost. I suppose you don't. He gestured toward a door she hadn't noticed. Your chambers are through there, connected to mine but private. You'll find everything you need. He paused. We'll maintain appearances in public. What happens in private is your choice. Renata swallowed. And the contract? The 3 years. Still binding. Unless. His jaw tightened. Unless you wish to leave. Now, before this becomes more complicated. She studied him. The ink. The stillness. The volcano sleeping beneath civility. Why would it become complicated? His laugh was low. Humorless. Because it always does, Kara. It always does. He wheeled toward the door. Good night, Signora Volpini. Sleep well. He left her alone with questions she didn't know how to ask. Week 1. Marriage to Andrea Volpini was an exercise in contradictions. He was visible and invisible, present and absent. Every morning, Renata found fresh flowers in her chambers. Deep red roses with thorns still attached. No card. No explanation. Just silent acknowledgement. He never ate breakfast with her. Never appeared before noon. But his presence saturated the estate like expensive cologne. Impossible to ignore, difficult to define. She began to watch him. The study afternoon. She found him in the library 3 days after the wedding. He was positioned before floor-to-ceiling windows, reading financial reports with the focus of a surgeon. His wheelchair angled toward the light. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, revealing more ink. A crest across his inner forearm, Latin words she couldn't decipher. Then why the chair? Why maintain the illusion? His smile turned cold. Because a crippled man is pitted. A crippled man is underestimated. A crippled man can rebuild his empire in plain sight while his enemies assume he's defeated. You're staring. His voice didn't rise. He didn't look up. I'm curious. About. Everything. Now he looked. His gaze was sharp. Assessing. That could be dangerous, Kara. Curiosity killed many things besides cats. Renata stepped closer. The guests at our wedding feared you. Genuinely feared you. A man in a wheelchair. Why? His fingers stilled on the page. Because fear isn't about what someone can do. It's about what they've proven they'll do. And what have you proven? The silence stretched. His tattooed hand turned over slowly. Palm up. The ink there was different, not words, but numbers. Dates. Too many to count. You'll learn eventually, he said quietly. Whether you want to or not. He returned to his reading. Dismissed. But Renata didn't miss the way his jaw clenched after she left. The first appearance, week 2. They attended the opera together. La Scala Milan, private box. Every powerful family in northern Italy present. Renata wore black silk. Andrea wore his usual midnight suit. Lorenzo accompanied them as always, a silent shadow. The stares began immediately. Look at her, someone whispered, playing nursemaid to a cripple. Renata's hands fisted in her lap. Beside her, Andrea's expression remained serene. His tattooed knuckles were visible against the velvet armrest. Silenzio. Silence. The opera began. Midway through the second act, a man approached their box. Young. Arrogant. Clearly drunk. Signora Volpini. He executed an exaggerated bow. Such a shame to see beauty wasted on ruin. If you ever want a man who can actually show you the world. He didn't finish. Lorenzo materialized from shadow, one hand on the man's shoulder. The grip looked casual. The man's face suggested otherwise. My apologies, Lorenzo murmured. But this box is private. The man was escorted out. Renata exhaled shakily. Andrea's hand found hers in the darkness. Breathe, he said softly. They are nothing. Noise. Static. His thumb brushed her knuckles. You are steel. Remember that. She looked at him, at the calm certainty in his eyes. How can you stand it? The disrespect. His smile was thin, dangerous. I don't stand anything, Kara. I wait. And then, his voice dropped. I remember. The opera continued, but Renata's heart didn't slow until long after the curtain fell. Week 3, the routine. Patterns emerged. Andrea worked from dawn until early afternoon. Phone calls in Italian, German, Mandarin. Meetings with men whose names Renata recognized from news reports about organized crime. Decisions made with soft words that somehow felt like artillery. He exercised in the private gym each evening. That's when she first noticed. The gym evening. She shouldn't have been watching. The gym was off limits, one of several areas Andrea had designated as private. But she'd heard sounds, grunts of effort, the rhythmic thud of impact. She'd expected to find him with a trainer, physical therapy, something mundane. Instead, through the cracked door, she saw him lift himself from the wheelchair using parallel bars. His arms trembled with effort. Sweat soaked his shirt, but he was standing, not fully, not steadily, but there was weight on his legs. Movement, possibility. She must have gasped. His head snapped toward the door. Their eyes met. Get out. She fled. That night, she couldn't sleep. The image burned behind her eyelids. Andrea standing. Andrea vertical. Andrea not nearly as broken as the world believed. Had the accident been exaggerated? Was his disability a facade? And if so, why? The confrontation, following morning. She found him in the breakfast room. He sat at the head of the table, newspapers spread before him, coffee untouched. His collar was open slightly, enough to reveal ink at his collarbone. The family crest, wings and daggers. Sit, he said without looking up. She sat. What you saw? You were standing. Rehabilitation. His voice remained flat. Experimental treatment. It's painful. Slow. Unlikely to yield results. You're lying. Now he looked. His gaze was ice. Be very careful, Kara. The words came soft as silk. Very careful what you accuse your husband of. Renata's heart hammered. But she didn't look away. I know what I saw. You weren't struggling. You were practicing. That wasn't therapy, it was training. The silence that followed could have crushed diamonds. Then, impossibly, he smiled. Donna Lucia was right about you. He folded his newspaper carefully. You are far more observant than you appear. What does that mean? He leaned back, his tattooed hands laced over his stomach. It means, wife, that you've stumbled onto something dangerous. And now we must decide what to do about it. Fear crept up her spine. Are you threatening me? Never. His voice softened, became almost tender. But others might, if they knew what you know. And what do I know? He studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He told her the truth. The revelation. 5 years ago, my father was murdered. The words hung in the morning light. He was shot in our home by men who were supposed to be allies. The Marchetti family, the Countess, others. They'd formed a coalition. Decided the Volpini Empire was worth more divided than whole. He paused. His jaw worked. I survived. Barely. The bullets damaged my spine. The doctors said I'd never walk again. But you can. Partially. His gaze held hers. It took 3 years and 17 surgeries. Experimental procedures no one knows about. I can stand. I can walk short distances. With effort, I can run. Renata's mind raced. You've been planning something. Something big. I've been planning everything, Kara. His eyes glittered. Every alliance. Every marriage. Every debt collected and favor called. The chair isn't my prison. It's my armor. And when I finally stand. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Why tell me this? Renata whispered. Because you saw. Because you're intelligent enough to be dangerous. And because... He hesitated. Something vulnerable flickered across his features. Because I find myself reluctant to lie to you. What if I tell someone? His expression closed. You won't. How can you be sure? He leaned forward. His tattooed hand covered hers on the table. Because if you do, your father's treatment stops. Your family's protection ends. And you. His thumb traced her knuckles. You disappear into the same void that swallowed my enemies. The threat was clear, but somehow it didn't feel cruel. It felt like honesty. Week 4, something changes. After the revelation, everything was different. Renata found herself watching Andrea with new eyes, seeing the performance within the paralysis, the coiled strength behind the stillness. He was not a victim. He was a weapon waiting to be deployed. And against all reason, she found herself drawn to the blade. The garden, afternoon. She found him among the roses. He was alone. Truly alone, without Lorenzo, without guards. His wheelchair was positioned beneath an arbor, surrounded by blood-red blooms. You don't fear me, he said as she approached. Not anymore. Should I? Most do. She sat on the stone bench beside his chair. I'm not most people. No. His gaze traced her face. You're not. They sat in silence. Birdsong filled the space between words. Tell me about your father, he said finally. Not the debt. Not the illness. Tell me about him. She blinked. Why? Because you carry him in your eyes. Every time you look worried. Every time you think no one's watching. Tears threatened. She forced them back. He was a carpenter. Furniture. Beautiful pieces that took months to complete. He used to say that anything worth making was worth making slowly. Andrea's expression softened. He sounds like a good man. He was. She swallowed. He's still fighting. Fighting is hereditary, then. She laughed despite herself. I suppose it is. His hand moved, hovered near her shoulder, then retreated. The almost touch felt louder than contact. The gala, week 5. They attended the Venetian masquerade together. Andrea wore white for the first time, a departure that sent whispers cascading through the crowd. His mask covered half his face. His wheelchair gleamed silver. But the real revelation was his collar. Open. Deliberately open. The tattoo at his collarbone was fully visible now. Wings and daggers. The Volpini crest. A declaration of power in a room full of doubters. Renata stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. A unified front. People are staring, she murmured. Let them. The Marchetti daughter keeps glancing over. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Elena Marchetti is irrelevant. She doesn't look at you like you're irrelevant. His head turned. Dark eyes found hers. Jealous, Kara? The question was light, teasing, but something beneath it was not. Should I be? He didn't answer. Instead, his hand rose, captured her chin, tilted her face toward his. There is no one in this room I want to see, he said quietly. Except you. Her breath caught. He released her, turned back to the crowd. But the imprint of his fingers burned against her skin for hours. The following week, the letter arrived without warning. Renata found it in her chambers, on her pillow, despite the estate's security. No envelope, no signature, just words cut from magazines like a ransom note. Your husband lies. You could do better. Meet me, or everyone learns what he hides. Her hands shook. Andrea's study that night. She showed him immediately. Andrea's expression didn't change as he read, but his knuckles whitened against the armrest. The Italian script seemed to darken. Mort, death. Where did you find this? My pillow. My locked chambers. Impossible. His voice remained calm. Too calm. No one accesses those rooms without my knowledge. Someone did. He set the letter down, pressed a button on his desk. Lorenzo appeared instantly. We have a breach. Sweep the estate. Every employee. Every guard. I want names by morning. Lorenzo nodded once and vanished. Andrea looked at Renata. You're frightened. Someone was in my room while I slept. While we slept. They won't get close again. His jaw tightened. I promise you that. How? How can you promise? Because anyone who threatens you threatens me. His voice dropped, became something ancient and dangerous. And no one threatens me twice. She stared at him, saw for the first time the full depth of what lay beneath the surface. Andrea, from tonight you sleep in my chambers. It wasn't a request. Adjacent rooms, connected doors. No one reaches you without passing me first. That's not non-negotiable. He wheeled toward her, stopped inches away. I didn't survive bullets and betrayal to lose you to shadows, Kara. You are under my protection. Fully. Completely. His voice cracked on the last word. Just slightly. Enough to reveal what he'd tried to hide. He cared. Despite the contract. Despite the arrangement. Despite every wall he'd built. He cared. The new arrangement. Her new chambers were obscenely luxurious. Private suite within Andrea's wing. Connecting doors that remained unlocked. Security measures invisible but omnipresent. She fell asleep that first night to the sound of his wheelchair moving in the adjacent room. Somehow it felt like safety. 3 nights later, she woke to screaming. Not her own. His. Renata burst through the connecting door without thinking. Andrea was tangled in sheets, thrashing against invisible enemies. His face contorted with terror. Words in Italian, no padre, no, tore from his throat. She didn't hesitate. She crossed the room, sat on the edge of his bed, pressed her hands against his shoulders. Andrea, wake up. You're safe. His eyes flew open. For one terrible moment, he didn't recognize her. Then clarity returned. He stared at her hands on his shoulders, at the concern she couldn't hide. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. You were screaming. I always scream. His laugh was bitter. Every night, since the bullets. I just usually do it quietly enough that no one hears. Her heart cracked. Do you want me to leave? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze traced her face. The sleep-mussed hair. The concern in her eyes. The way she hadn't flinched from his demons. No, he whispered finally. Stay. She stayed. That night, they talked until dawn. About his father, her mother, the childhoods that had shaped them, the betrayals that had broken them. He spoke of bullets and hospitals and the moment he'd realized he couldn't feel his legs. She spoke of debt collectors and desperation, and the day she'd signed away her freedom for her family's survival. When morning light crept through the curtains, she was curled in the chair beside his bed. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't name. You should sleep, he said. So should you. I don't sleep. Not well. Not anymore. She reached out. Her fingers brushed his tattooed knuckles. Then we won't sleep together. His breath caught. The double meaning hung in the air. But neither of them acknowledged it. Not yet. The charity ball, week 6. The breach investigation yielded nothing. Lorenzo's searches found no traitor, no infiltrator, no explanation. The letter remained a mystery, a threat with no face. Andrea responded by increasing security, and by keeping Renata closer than ever. The event, the charity ball, was held at the Marchetti estate. Renata understood the politics. Appearing weak would invite attack. So she wore emerald silk and diamonds Andrea had presented that morning. She smiled until her face ached. She played the devoted wife with expert precision. But halfway through the evening, something shifted. A man approached her at the refreshment table. Handsome, early 30s, confident smile. Signora Volpini. He bowed over her hand. I'm Marco Ferrante, a distant cousin, actually, through your grandmother's side. Renata blinked. I wasn't aware I had family in these circles. Most aren't. His smile widened. We've kept our distance from the old alliances. But when I heard about your situation, I couldn't stay silent. My situation? Your marriage. His voice dropped. To a man who can't give you what you deserve. Ice crawled down her spine. My marriage is contractual. I know. He stepped closer. The question is, does it have to stay that way? From across the room, she felt Andrea's gaze lock onto them. She didn't need to look to know his expression. Signor Ferrante, I suggest you step back. Why? Because your husband might will overhear? Please. His laugh was cruel. What's he going to do? Glare at me? No, said a voice like ice. But I might. Lorenzo materialized beside them. His hand closed around Marco's arm with deceptive gentleness. The Signora needs air. You're blocking her path. I'm not. Yes. Lorenzo smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You are. Marco paled. He retreated. But the damage was done. The ride home. Andrea didn't speak for the entire journey. His tattooed hands gripped the wheelchair arms. His jaw was set in stone. His eyes stared out the window at passing shadows. Renata sat across from him in the limousine, waiting. You encouraged him, Andrea said finally. I didn't. You smiled, laughed. Let him touch your hand. He took my hand. I was being polite. Polite. The word dripped with venom. Is that what we're calling it? Renata's temper flared. You're jealous. I'm aware. He finally looked at her. His eyes blazed. Every man in that room wanted you. Every man in that room thought I couldn't keep you. That I'm too broken. Too weak. Too less. And you believe them? I believe evidence. Then you're a fool. The words hit like a slap. Andrea's expression fractured. What? Renata leaned forward. I have watched you command empires from that chair. I have seen men twice your size cower from your silence. I have felt your strength in every calculated move, every measured word, every moment of patience that would break lesser men. Her voice shook. Don't you dare tell me you're less. You are more. More than anyone in that room. More than anyone I've ever known. Silence. His breathing was ragged. Then, slowly, his hand reached across the space between them. His tattooed fingers cupped her face. Say that again. Which part? The part where I'm more. She leaned into his palm. You are more, Andrea. In every way that matters. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Then why does it feel like I'm losing you? You're not. Her voice cracked. I'm right here. He pulled her forward. Their foreheads touched. They stayed that way until the car stopped. The following days, something had shifted between them. Unspoken, unacknowledged, but present in every glance, every accidental touch, every moment of proximity that lasted too long. Renata found herself counting the hours until she'd see him. Andrea found himself making excuses to be near her. Neither admitted it. Both felt it. The private dinner. He invited her to dine with him alone. The room was intimate. Candlelit, soft music. A table set for two. His wheelchair was positioned at the head. She sat to his right. You've been avoiding me, she said. I've been thinking. About. His gaze found hers. About how this was supposed to be a contract. Convenience. A mutually beneficial arrangement. And it's becoming something else. Her heart stuttered. Is that bad? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into his jacket and withdrew a small velvet box. This was my mother's. He opened it. Inside lay a ring. Not the wedding band she already wore, but something older. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Obviously antique. Obviously priceless. She gave it to my father on their 20th anniversary. He wore it until the day he died. His voice roughened. I've never shown it to anyone. Why are you showing me? He met her eyes. Because I want you to understand that what's happening between us isn't performance. It isn't strategy. He closed the box. Slid it toward her. It's real, Kara. And that terrifies me. Renata stared at the box. At him. At the walls crumbling between them. Keep it, he said. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, you'll know what to do with it. She took the box. Her hands trembled. But she didn't say no. Week 6, the night everything changed. The second letter arrived with blood on it. Not much. Just enough to terrify. You were warned. He can't protect you. The truth comes out tomorrow. Andrea's response. He went cold. Not angry. Not frightened. Cold. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as he read the words. Lorenzo. Lock down the estate. No one in. No one out. And the event tomorrow? Tomorrow. The Volpini Foundation Annual Gala. The biggest public appearance of the year. 300 of Italy's most powerful people gathered in one place. It proceeds as planned. Andrea, Renata started. It proceeds. His voice brooked no argument. Whoever this is wants me to hide, wants me to cower, wants me to prove every whisper true. His tattooed hand slammed against the armrest. I am done hiding. She stared at him. What are you going to do? His smile was terrifying. Something I should have done 5 years ago. He looked at Lorenzo. Prepare the white suit, the standing brace, and call the surgeon. Andrea, tomorrow night, at my own gala, in front of everyone who ever doubted me. His voice dropped to a whisper. I stand. That night, Renata found him in his chambers. He actually stood, gripping parallel bars bolted to his private gym wall. Sweat drenched his shirt. His face twisted with effort and pain. But he was vertical, strong, powerful. You shouldn't be here, he said without looking. I'm always where I shouldn't be. He laughed despite himself. Yes, you are. She approached slowly, stood before him as he maintained his grip. If you do this tomorrow, if you stand in front of everyone, there's no going back. I know. Your enemies will know you deceived them. They'll be angry, dangerous. I know. So why? He looked at her, really looked. Because I'm tired of being a symbol of weakness when I'm not. Because I'm tired of watching men like Marco Ferrante think they can take what's mine. Because I'm tired of you seeing me as anything less than what I am. Her breath caught. I don't see you as less. But you see the chair first. Everyone does. His voice cracked. I want you to see me, Renata. The real me. Not the illusion I've been selling for 5 years. She reached out. Her hands covered his on the bars. I see you, Andrea. I've seen you since the first night you held my hand at our wedding. His eyes glistened. Then don't look away tomorrow. Whatever happens, don't look away. She stepped closer. I won't. Their faces were inches apart. His gaze dropped to her lips, back to her eyes. I'm going to kiss you now, he whispered. Not for strategy, not for appearance. Just because I can't breathe without doing it. She didn't pull away. Then breathe. His lips met hers. Gentle at first. Questioning. Then deeper. More certain. A kiss that tasted like 5 years of waiting and 6 weeks of falling and every moment in between. When they parted, both were trembling. Tomorrow, he said hoarsely. Everything changes. She touched his face. I know. The night of the revelation. The Volpini estate blazed with light. Guests arrived in waves, senators and CEOs, old money and new influence. They sipped champagne and whispered about the crippled host they'd come to pity. None of them knew what was coming. The grand entrance. Renata descended the staircase alone. She wore crimson, a deliberate choice. The color of blood. The color of power. The sapphire ring hung on a chain at her throat, resting against her heartbeat. At the bottom of the stairs, she waited. The orchestra paused. 300 heads turned. And Andrea Volpini appeared in the archway. In his wheelchair. For now. He wore white again. Unmarked, pristine. A canvas that highlighted every dark mark of ink visible above his collar. The family crest. The Italian script. The story of his survival written on his skin. He wheeled forward with deliberate slowness. The crowd parted. Whispers resumed. Still in that chair. Poor thing. 5 years and nothing's changed. Andrea stopped at the center of the ballroom. He looked at Renata. She nodded once. And then, the stand. He placed his hands on the armrests. The room fell silent. Slowly, impossibly, he pushed himself up. His legs straightened. His spine aligned. His full height emerged. 6 feet 2 inches of coiled power finally unleashed. He stood. The gasps were deafening. Dio mio. He's standing. It's not possible. Andrea's voice cut through the chaos. 5 years ago, I was shot by men I trusted. They left me for dead. They told the world I would never walk again. His gaze swept the room, landing on the Marchetti delegation. The Countess. Every family that had circled like vultures. They were wrong. He took a step forward. Another. His movements were careful but certain. His tattooed hands hung loose at his sides. I have spent 5 years rebuilding. 5 years planning. 5 years allowing you all to believe I was broken. His smile was sharp as a blade. I am not broken. I have never been broken. And anyone who threatens what is mine. His eyes found Renata. Will learn exactly what I'm capable of. The room was silent, frozen. Then Senator Marchetti stepped forward. His face was pale, furious, terrified. This is impossible. This is a trick. You can't. I can. Andrea's voice dropped. And I have. The question now, Senator, is what you're going to do about it. Marchetti's hand moved toward his jacket. The threat revealed. It happened fast. Marchetti drew a gun, hidden, impossible in such a secure event. Screams erupted. But Andrea didn't flinch. His hand closed around Marchetti's wrist before the gun could rise. A twist. A crack. The weapon clattered to the floor. You sent the letters, Andrea said calmly. You tried to destabilize my marriage, my home, my wife. She deserves better than a corpse playing at power. Andrea's fist connected with Marchetti's jaw. The senator dropped. Guards swarmed. But Andrea only had eyes for Renata. She stood frozen at the base of the stairs. Face pale, eyes wide. He crossed to her, took her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles. It's over, he murmured. All of it. The threats, the hiding, the lies. He looked up at her. There's only one question left. What? Do you want to stay? The truth has shattered every lie he built. The man everyone mocked has revealed himself as the most dangerous power in the room. But Renata now faces an impossible choice. Embrace the darkness she's married to, or flee before it consumes her. The answer will change everything. The ballroom moments after. Chaos swirled around them like a hurricane. Security forces swarmed Senator Marchetti. Guests screamed and scattered. Camera phones flashed despite the pandemonium. The pristine gala had transformed into a crime scene in seconds. But Andrea saw none of it. He saw only her. Renata stood frozen, her crimson gown pooling around her feet like spilled wine. Her eyes held shock, fear, and something else, something he couldn't name but desperately needed to understand. Renata! His voice cut through the noise. Look at me. She did. Her gaze traveled down his body, standing vertical, powerful, as if seeing him for the first time. You're really... She swallowed. All this time. He stepped closer. His tattooed hand reached for hers. I wanted to tell you sooner. You lied to me. The words hit like bullets. I protected you. From what? The truth. Her voice cracked. I signed a contract to marry a man in a wheelchair. I prepared myself for that life. I made my peace with it. And now... She pulled her hand away. His heart stopped. Now what? Tears glistened in her eyes. Now I don't know who I married. She turned, fled through the crowd. Andrea didn't follow. He couldn't. His legs, so newly revealed, suddenly felt like lead. The private wing 1 hour later. Lorenzo found him in the study. Andrea stood at the window. Actually stood, no wheelchair in sight, watching the last police cars disappear down the estate drive. His white suit was rumpled. His jaw was tight. His tattooed hands gripped the windowsill like he might shatter the glass. Marchetti is in custody, Lorenzo reported. His people are scattering. The coalition is finished. And Renata? Silence. She's in her chambers. Packing. Andrea's knuckles whitened. Packing. She asked about the contract. The termination clause. He closed his eyes. 5 years of planning. 5 years of patience. 5 years of building toward this moment of triumph. and it meant nothing, because she was leaving. Sir. Lorenzo's voice softened. Perhaps if you explained. Explained what? That I deceived her from the beginning? That our entire marriage was strategy? Andrea's laugh was bitter. She's not wrong to run. She's wrong about one thing. What? Lorenzo stepped closer. She thinks the deception was about her. It wasn't. He paused. It was about survival. Yours. Your family's. This empire's. She was supposed to be a piece on the board. But she became something else. Andrea turned. What are you saying? I'm saying that in 30 years of service to your family, I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her. Lorenzo met his gaze. Don't let her leave without knowing that. The words hung in the air. Andrea stared at his oldest friend. Then he moved. Renata's chambers. She was folding clothes when he appeared. No wheelchair. No warning. Just Andrea in the doorway, filling the frame with a presence she'd never fully appreciated until now. You're standing, she said flatly. You're packing. I can't stay here. Can't? Or won't? She threw a silk blouse into her suitcase. Does it matter? The contract has an exit clause. Mutual consent or material misrepresentation. Her voice hardened. I'd say hiding the ability to walk counts as material misrepresentation. You're right. She paused. What? He stepped into the room. The door closed behind him. You're right. I lied. I manipulated. I let you believe you were marrying a broken man because it served my purposes. His voice was steady, unflinching. Every strategic decision I've made for 5 years has been calculated to this moment, including our marriage. Her eyes burned. Then why are you here? To gloat? No. He moved closer. To confess. She backed against the dresser. Confess what? That's somewhere between the contract signing and tonight. He stopped inches away. His tattooed hand rose, hovered near her face, then dropped. Somewhere in there, strategy stopped mattering. I don't understand. Neither do I. His laugh was raw, vulnerable. I've built empires on understanding, on control, on knowing exactly what every piece on the board will do. His eyes found hers. But I never predicted you. Her heart hammered. Andrea, I watch you across rooms and forget what I was thinking. I hear your voice and my pulse does things it hasn't done in years. I stood tonight, for the first time in public, and the only face I looked for was yours. Tears spilled down her cheeks. That doesn't excuse the lies. No, it doesn't. He swallowed. But it's the truth. The first completely honest thing I've said since we met. Silence stretched between them. She could hear both their breathing. Finally, she spoke. Why did you really marry me? Not the alliance. Not the bloodline. The real reason. His jaw tightened. Because when I saw your photograph before we ever met, something in your eyes reminded me of what I used to be. Before the bullets. Before the chair. Before I became this. He gestured at himself. This weapon. What did you used to be? Human. His voice cracked. I used to be human, Renata, and I wanted to feel that again. She stared at him, at the tattoos marking his skin, at the vulnerability beneath the power. Do you? She whispered. Feel human. His hand rose again. This time he touched her face. Only when I'm with you. The silence between words. She didn't pull away. His thumb traced the tear track on her cheek. His touch was impossibly gentle. The same hands that had just broken a senator's wrist now trembling against her skin. I should hate you, she whispered. You should. I should take the settlement and disappear. You could. I should never forgive the deception. No. His voice dropped. You shouldn't. She searched his eyes. Then why can't I make myself leave? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer was in the electricity between them. The gravitational pull that had existed since their first glimpse at the altar. The connection neither of them had planned or wanted but couldn't seem to escape. One chance, she said finally. His breath caught. What? One chance. To prove that what you said is true. That this isn't strategy. Her chin lifted. One chance to show me the real Andrea Volpini. Not the crippled billionaire. Not the mafia mastermind, but the man underneath all of it. Hope flickered in his eyes. A dangerous, devastating hope. And if I fail? Then I walk away forever. Contract void. Settlement paid. No contact. He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. One chance. He stepped back, offered his hand. Starting now. She looked at his tattooed knuckles, at the words inked across his skin. Honor. Sang. Silenzio. Mort. Honor. Blood. Silence. Death. But there was space between the words. Space for something new. She took his hand. Day 1. He showed her the wheelchair room. A chamber she'd never seen. Deep in the estate's private wing. Walls lined with medical equipment. Parallel bars. Rehabilitation machines. The physical evidence of 5 years of secret recovery. I trained here every night, he said quietly. After everyone else slept. 3 hours minimum. Sometimes 6. She touched the worn handles of the parallel bars. The pain must have been unbearable. He leaned against the wall. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing the full extent of ink along his forearms. Dates, names, symbols she was only beginning to understand. The surgeons said the nerve damage was too severe. That walking was impossible. But you did it anyway. I did it because it was impossible. His jaw tightened. Because everyone told me I couldn't. Because my father's killers were still breathing. Still powerful. Still laughing at the crippled son who would never threaten them. Revenge. At first, his eyes found hers. But revenge is a poor fuel. It burns too hot. Too fast. Eventually, I needed something else. What? He was quiet for a long moment. Purpose. Legacy. The possibility that someday, someone might see me as more than a victim. She understood then. The wheelchair wasn't just strategy. It was armor against a world that would have destroyed him if he'd shown weakness. Day 3. He took her to the cemetery. His father's grave sat on a hillside overlooking the estate. A simple marble marker surrounded by cypress trees. Andrea stood beside it. No wheelchair, his posture rigid. I was there when it happened, he said. In the dining room. 3 men. Marchetti's people. They shot my father first, then turned on me. Renata stood beside him. How did you survive? Our chef, Rosa. She'd been with the family for 40 years. A ghost of a smile. She kept a shotgun behind the flower bins. Killed one of them. Scared the others enough that they fled before finishing the job. Where is she now? The guest cottage. She refuses to retire. His voice softened. She's the one who brought you flowers every morning. I asked her to. I wanted. He trailed off. Wanted what? To make you feel welcome. Even when I couldn't show you myself. She looked at the grave. At the name carved in marble. Salvatore Volpini. Beloved father. 1952 to 2019. He would have liked you, Andrea said quietly. He always said I needed someone who wasn't afraid to argue with me. I'm not afraid. I know. He turned to face her. That's why I kept choosing you. Even when the strategy didn't require it. Even when walking away would have been smarter. Why? His tattooed hand reached for hers. Because cowardice is hereditary, Renata, and so is courage. He interlaced their fingers. You have more courage than anyone I've ever met. And I wanted to be near it. To remember what it felt like. She squeezed his hand. They stood in silence until the sun began to set. Day 7. He asked her to dance. No gala. No audience. Just the 2 of them in the estate's private ballroom. A single violin playing from somewhere unseen. I don't know if I can, he admitted. Standing is one thing. Moving gracefully is. Then we'll be ungraceful together. She took his hands, placed one on her waist, and they began. It was clumsy at first. He stumbled. She caught him. He overcompensated. She adjusted. But slowly, impossibly, they found a rhythm. His body remembered what his legs had forgotten. And somewhere between the music and the movement, The last wall between them crumbled. Renata! She looked up. His eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. I need to tell you something. What? His forehead touched hers. I love you. The words hung in the air like cathedral bells. I know I have no right to say it. I know this started as manipulation. I know you have every reason to doubt me. His voice shook. But it's true. It's been true for weeks. Maybe longer. Maybe since the moment you walked down that aisle and didn't look away. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only feel. Andrea, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel it. I just needed you to know. She kissed him. Not gentle. Not questioning. A kiss that demanded and surrendered simultaneously. A kiss that said everything words couldn't capture. When they parted, both were trembling. I love you too, she whispered. God help me. I love you too. His arms tightened around her. The violin played on. And for the first time in 5 years, Andrea Volpini felt whole. 2 weeks later, they should have known peace wouldn't last. The Marchetti coalition was shattered, but its remnants were desperate, and desperate men did desperate things. The first warning came at breakfast. A single photograph slipped under the dining room door. Renata and Andrea at the cemetery, his hand in hers, both of them vulnerable, unguarded. The message was clear. We're still watching. The emergency meeting. Lorenzo gathered the security team within the hour. The photograph was taken from the Eastern Ridge, he reported. Long-range lens. Professional equipment. Andrea sat at the head of the table. No wheelchair now, but his expression carried the same deadly stillness. Marchetti is in custody. Who else? The Countess have gone quiet. The Bertali family claims neutrality. Lorenzo paused. But there's a new player. Someone funding the remnants. Someone we haven't identified. Find them. We're trying, sir. But they're good. Very good. Andrea's tattooed hand flexed against the table. Double the perimeter security. No one leaves without escort. His gaze found Renata across the room. Especially her. She met his eyes. Neither looked away. That night. You're worried. They were in his chambers. Their chambers now, though neither had formally acknowledged the shift. Renata sat on the bed's edge while Andrea stood at the window, watching the guards patrol the grounds. Worried is too small a word. Then what? He turned. The moonlight caught the ink at his collarbone. Wings and daggers. The family crest. I've spent 5 years preparing for war. I know every move, every counter, every contingency. His jaw tightened. But I've never had something worth protecting. Not like this. She rose, crossed to him. I'm not fragile. I know. I won't break because someone takes photographs. I know that too. His hands cupped her face. But the thought of losing you, the possibility of it, makes me want to burn the entire world down just to keep you safe. That's not protection. That's obsession. Yes. He didn't flinch. It is. She should have been frightened. Instead, she felt understood. Then be obsessed, she whispered. But don't shut me out. Don't try to protect me by keeping me ignorant. His eyes searched hers. What are you asking? I'm asking to be your partner, not your prisoner. She held his gaze. I married a billionaire mafia boss, Andrea. I knew what I was signing up for, even before I knew the full truth. He stared at her. Then slowly he smiled. You're terrifying. I learned from the best. He kissed her forehead. Tomorrow we meet with Lorenzo. You'll hear everything, see everything, know everything. And tonight, his eyes darkened. Tonight, his hands slid from her face to her waist, drew her closer. Tonight I want to hold you, just hold you, and pretend the world outside doesn't exist. She melted into him. Then hold me. He did. 3 days later, they found the traitor. Not among the guards. Not in the security team. Not anywhere Andrea had thought to look. Donna Lucia, the woman who had managed the household for 30 years. Who had welcomed Renata with cryptic warmth. Who had spoken of Andrea as a volcano waiting to wake. She'd been reporting to the Countess since the day of the shooting. The confrontation. Andrea sat in the interrogation room. Actually sat in a chair, not a wheelchair. The distinction felt significant now. Lucia sat across from him, her weathered face betraying nothing. Why? She was silent for a long moment. Because they promised to spare you. What? The night your father died. The Countess contacted me before the attack. Said if I kept them informed of his movements, they'd ensure you survived. Her voice cracked. You were like a son to me, Andrea. I couldn't watch you die too. He stared at her. The woman who had raised him after his mother passed. The woman who had brought flowers to his new wife. The woman who had betrayed everything. And now? The photographs, the continued surveillance. They never stopped demanding information. I tried to refuse after you recovered. But they threatened. She stopped. They threatened Renata. Said they'd hurt her if I stopped cooperating. Ice filled his veins. They threatened my wife. I thought I could protect her by staying close, by controlling what information reached them. Tears streamed down Lucia's face. I never meant for any of this. I loved your father. I love you. Andrea said nothing. He rose, walked to the door. You'll be relocated to the northern estate. Comfortable, isolated, safe. His voice was flat. But I never want to see your face again. Andrea. Basta. He left, and something inside him calcified into diamond-hard resolve. That afternoon, Renata found him in the garden. Among the roses, where they'd first spoken honestly. His back was to her. His shoulders shook. I heard. He didn't turn. She was family. The closest thing I had left after my mother. Renata approached, wrapped her arms around him from behind. I'm sorry. Don't be. His voice hardened. This is what I am. What my world is. Betrayal and blood and people who smile while they plan your destruction. That's not all you are. He turned in her arms. His eyes were red-rimmed. How can you still look at me like that? After everything? Like what? Like I'm worth saving. She touched his face. Traced the ink at his jaw, words she couldn't read but somehow understood. Because you are. She held his gaze. We both are. He crumbled. Buried his face in her shoulder. And for the first time since his father's death, Andrea Volpini wept. 1 week later, the Countess made their move. Not with guns or assassins, they'd learned that lesson. Instead, they attacked what Andrea valued most. His reputation. His legitimacy. His wife. The article. It hit every major newspaper simultaneously. Volpini heir faked disability for 5 years. Sources confirm the crippled billionaire has been walking in secret since 2021. Evidence suggests massive insurance fraud and stock manipulation. Wife allegedly complicit in deception scheme. Renata stared at the headlines. Her photograph, their wedding photograph, splashed across every front page. They're calling me a co-conspirator. It's lies. It's effective lies. She looked at Andrea. Your stock price dropped 40% this morning. The foundation is being investigated. Your legitimate businesses are distancing themselves. I know. What are we going to do? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was the smile that preceded earthquakes. We're going to give them exactly what they want. Which is a target. He rose. Me. The plan. He called a press conference for the following day. No lawyers. No PR team. Just Andrea Volpini standing before 100 journalists. Ready to address every accusation. This is insane, Lorenzo argued. You'll be torn apart. I'll be honest. Andrea's voice was calm. For the first time publicly, I'll tell the complete truth. About the attack. About my recovery. About why I hid my ability to walk. And the insurance fraud allegations? Never happened. Every policy was disclosed properly. The Countess are counting on no one checking the paperwork. Lorenzo hesitated. And Signora Volpini? Andrea looked at Renata. She stands beside me. If she's willing. Renata met his gaze. I'm willing. The attacks will be vicious. They'll call you a gold digger. An opportunist. Worse. They've called me worse since our wedding day. She stepped closer. At least now, I know who I'm standing with. His hand found hers. Squeezed. Then we faced them together. The press conference. The room was packed. Every major outlet. Every hostile face. Every camera lens aimed at the man who'd fooled the world. Andrea stood at the podium. No wheelchair. No armor. Just himself. And beside him, her hand in his, stood Renata. 5 years ago, I was shot 3 times in my family home. The room fell silent. The assassins were sent by business rivals who wanted my father's empire. They succeeded in killing him. They almost succeeded in killing me. He paused. Let the words settle. The doctors said I would never walk again. For 2 years they were right, but I refused to accept their verdict. I refused to die, literally or symbolically, because my enemies willed it. Cameras flashed. I underwent 17 experimental surgeries. I spent thousands of hours in rehabilitation. And eventually, through medicine and stubbornness and rage, I regained the ability to walk. Then why hide it? Someone shouted. Andrea's smile was thin. Because a man in a wheelchair is pitted, underestimated, dismissed. And I needed my enemies to dismiss me while I rebuilt everything they tried to destroy. So you admit to deception? I admit to survival. His voice hardened. I admit to protecting what remained of my family. I admit to ensuring that the people who murdered my father would never feel safe again. And the fraud allegations? Fabricated. Every insurance policy, every financial disclosure, every document has been submitted to investigators this morning. You'll find nothing because there's nothing to find. He looked directly at the camera. The Conti family manufactured this story to destroy me. They failed before. They'll fail again. A reporter thrust forward. What about your wife? Was she part of the deception? Andrea's arm slid around Renata's waist. My wife knew nothing until recently. She entered this marriage believing exactly what the world believed, that I was confined to a wheelchair permanently. His voice softened. She stayed anyway. She chose me anyway. That tells you everything you need to know about her character. Renata lifted her chin. I have a statement as well. The room shifted. All eyes locked on her. When I agreed to marry Andrea Volpini, I thought I was making a strategic decision, a sacrifice for my family. Her voice was steady. I was wrong. She looked at him. I didn't marry a cripple or a billionaire or a mafia boss. I married a man. A complicated, brilliant, infuriating man who has shown me more honesty in the past 2 months than most people show in a lifetime. She turned back to the cameras. You can call me a gold digger, an opportunist, whatever makes you feel better about your assumptions. Her eyes flashed. But I will not apologize for loving my husband, and I will not be intimidated by people who hide behind newspaper headlines. Silence. Then, impossibly, applause. It started small, a single journalist in the back. Then another. Then a wave that swept through the room. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to matter. 3 weeks later, the investigation cleared Andrea of all charges. The Contis evidence was exposed as fabricated. Their sources were traced back to criminal networks. And when the authorities finally followed the money, they found everything. Bank records, communications, photographs of the Conti patriarch meeting with the men who'd killed Salvatore Volpini. The arrests happened at dawn. The morning after, Renata woke to sunshine and silence. Andrea's side of the bed was empty, but a note rested on his pillow. Garden. Come when you're ready. She dressed quickly. Found him among the roses. He was standing, always standing now, with his back to the house. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. The morning light caught every line of ink along his forearms. It's over, he said without turning. The Contis are finished. Marchetti's people have scattered. Lorenzo says the coalition is permanently dismantled. She approached, stood beside him. How do you feel? He was quiet for a long moment. Empty. He turned to face her. For 5 years, revenge was my purpose, my fuel. And now you need something new. Yes. His eyes held hers. I have a suggestion. What? He reached into his pocket, withdrew a small velvet box. Her breath caught. You already gave me this. I gave you my mother's ring. Asked you to keep it until you were ready. He opened the box. The sapphire gleamed in the morning light. I'm asking you now, Renata. Not as part of a contract. Not as strategy. Not as anything except a man who loves you. He lowered himself to one knee. The man who had hidden his ability to kneel. The man who had pretended weakness to survive. Kneeling before her now because he chose to. Marry me again. Tears streamed down her face. We're already married. Not really. Not in any way that matters. His voice shook. I want vows we both mean. I want a ceremony where no one whispers. I want to stand at that altar and tell the world that you're mine. Not because a contract says so, but because we chose each other. She stared at him, at the ink on his hands, at the vulnerability in his eyes, at the man who had conquered empires but trembled before her answer. Yes, he exhaled. Yes. She knelt before him, took his face in her hands. Yes, Andrea. 1,000 times yes. He kissed her. There, in the garden, surrounded by roses with thorns still attached. And somewhere in the estate, Donna Lucia's replacement reported to Lorenzo that the master and his lady would not be disturbed for the remainder of the morning. 1 month later, the cathedral looked different in autumn light. Golden leaves carpeted the entrance. Sunlight streamed through stained glass. And this time, no one whispered. The ceremony. 50 guests. Family. True friends. People who had proven their loyalty through fire. Renata walked down the aisle on her father's arm. He was weaker now. Cancer had taken its toll despite the treatments, but he'd insisted. Had dragged himself from the hospital bed for this moment. You're happy, he whispered. I am. He's a good man? She looked at Andrea, standing at the altar, actually standing, his white suit pristine, his tattooed hands visible at his sides, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that should have been frightening. He's my man. Her father smiled, kissed her cheek, released her. The vows. I, Andrea Salvatore Volpini, take you, Renata Maria Valli, to be my wife. Not in strategy, not in convenience. His voice cracked, but in truth, in devotion, in every way that matters. His tattooed hand slid the ring onto her finger. You saw me at my weakest and didn't look away. You heard my sins and didn't run. You stood beside me when the world called you a fool. His eyes glistened. I will spend every remaining day of my life proving they were wrong. Proving that you made the best choice. Proving that I deserve the gift of your heart. Renata couldn't breathe. I, Renata Maria Valli, take you, Andrea Salvatore Volpini, to be my husband. Not because I have to. Not because I signed a contract. She smiled through tears. But because you're the only person who's ever seen me. Really seen me. The fear and the strength and everything in between. She slid the ring onto his finger. You pretended to be broken so the world would underestimate you. But I know the truth now. Her voice dropped. You were never broken, Andrea. You were waiting. For the right moment. For the right purpose. She touched his face. For me. He shattered. Pulled her into his arms. The priest hadn't said, you may kiss the bride yet. Neither of them cared. The reception. No mockery this time. Only celebration. They danced, actually danced, while their guests watched with wonder. The man who'd been confined to a wheelchair for 5 years moved with surprising grace. His wife held close against his chest. They're staring again, she murmured. Let them. You're enjoying this. Immensely. He spun her out, drew her back. Every person who laughed at our first wedding is watching us now. Eating their words. Choking on their assumptions. That's petty. That's satisfying. She laughed. He dipped her backward. Held her there, suspended, her hair brushing the floor. I love you, he said quietly. I'll never tire of saying it. Then never stop. He pulled her upright. Never. Later that night, the guests had gone. The estate was quiet. They stood in their chambers, truly their chambers now, every trace of separation removed. "Wife," he said, tasting the word. "Husband," she replied. "Mine. Yours." He crossed to her. His hands found her waist, drew her against him. "I've imagined this moment for weeks," he admitted. "Longer, probably. Since the first time I saw your photograph." "What did you imagine?" His lips brushed her ear. "Everything." She shivered. "Show me." He did. The details remained theirs alone. Whispered promises and tender touches, and the complete surrender of two people who had finally found home. When morning came, they lay tangled together, watching dawn paint the ceiling gold. "Worth it," she murmured. "What?" "All of it. The contract, the deception, the fear." She traced the ink along his collarbone. "Worth it." He kissed her hair. "You're the only thing that's ever been worth anything." 6 months later, the estate had never felt so alive. Renovations continued, Andrea's projects, mostly, designed to modernize the family holdings while honoring their history. But something else was changing too. Something quieter. Something neither of them had planned. The discovery. Renata found out on a Tuesday. She'd been tired for weeks. Emotional. Sensitive to smells she'd never noticed before. The doctor confirmed what she'd suspected. She was pregnant. The telling. She found Andrea in his study. He looked up as she entered, smiled, then frowned. "You look pale." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're—" He stopped. Read something in her expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She crossed to his desk, stood before him. "Andrea, I need to tell you something." Fear flickered in his eyes. "What?" She took his tattooed hand, placed it on her stomach, held it there. Understanding dawned slowly, then all at once. "You're—" "Yes." "Pregnant." "Yes." He stared at her, at his hand on her belly, at the impossible miracle beneath his palm. "I'm going to be a father." "You are." He looked up. His eyes were full. "I never thought I'd have this. A wife, a child, a family of my own." His voice broke. "After everything, the bullets, the betrayal, the years of pretending to be something I wasn't, I never believed I deserved." He couldn't finish. She knelt before him, took his face in her hands. "You deserve everything, Andrea. Every happiness, every joy, every moment of peace that was stolen from you." He pulled her into his lap, held her like she was the most precious thing in existence. "I love you," he whispered. "I know. I'll protect you, both of you, with every breath I have left. I know that too. I'll be a good father. I swear it." "You will." She kissed his forehead. "You already are." 3 months later, Renata's pregnancy progressed smoothly. The morning sickness faded. The danger seemed to have passed. For the first time in years, Andrea allowed himself to believe in the future. But old enemies had long memories. The final threat came without warning. A car. A checkpoint that should have been secure. A gap in the perimeter that shouldn't have existed. Renata was returning from visiting her father. His condition stable now, his spirits high at the prospect of becoming a grandfather. The vehicle appeared from nowhere, black, armored, blocking the road. 3 men emerged. The attack. Lorenzo was with her. So were 2 other guards. But the attackers were professionals, remnants of the Conti organization who'd evaded capture. Men with nothing left to lose. Gunfire erupted. Renata ducked below the dashboard, hands pressed against her swelling belly. "Lorenzo! Stay down!" More shots. Glass shattered. Then silence. She looked up. Lorenzo was bleeding from his shoulder but standing. The other guards had neutralized 2 attackers. The third was pinned to the ground, screaming. "Take him alive!" Lorenzo growled. "The boss will want to talk to him." The aftermath. Andrea met them at the estate gates. He'd heard the shots, had raced from his study to the entrance, fear clawing at his chest. When the car appeared, battered, bullet-scarred, but intact, he nearly collapsed with relief. Renata emerged shakily. He ran to her. Actually ran. "Are you hurt?" The baby? Dio, tell me. We're fine. Her voice trembled but held. Lorenzo protected us. We're fine. He pulled her against his chest, held her so tightly she could barely breathe. I'll kill them, he whispered. Every last one of them. I'll burn their world to ashes. Andrea, she pulled back, met his eyes. I'm safe. We're safe. Focus on that. He stared at her, at the strength in her gaze, at the steel that had always lived beneath her surface. How are you so calm? Because I married a volcano, she said quietly, and I learned that the most powerful eruptions begin in silence. That night, the surviving attacker talked. Lorenzo's methods were efficient. The information flowed quickly. The Conti remnants had pooled resources for one final strike. Not against Andrea, that had proven impossible, but against what Andrea loved most. His wife, his child, his heart. The decision. Andrea stood in the interrogation room. The attacker was bound to a chair, bleeding, broken. Who paid you? Doesn't matter. They're already dead. Explain. The man laughed. A wet, desperate sound. You think you're the only one who plays the long game? The Contis, the Marchettis, everyone who came for you, they were pawns. All of us were pawns. Andrea's blood ran cold. Who's the player? Someone you'll never find. Someone who... He convulsed. Foam appeared at his mouth. Poison hidden in a tooth. A final precaution. Within seconds, he was dead. The unknown enemy. Andrea stared at the corpse. Lorenzo stood beside him. There's someone else, Andrea said quietly. Someone above the Contis. Above all of them. We'll find them. We'd better. His jaw tightened. Because until we do, she's never safe. They're never safe. He looked at his tattooed hands, at the words inked into his skin. Honor. Sang. Silenzio. Mort. Honor. Blood. Silence. Death. Tear their world apart, he said quietly. Leave nothing standing. Nothing hidden. I want to know who's pulling the strings, and I want them destroyed. Yes, sir. Lorenzo left. Andrea remained, staring at the body of a man who died rather than betray his master. Whatever was coming next, it would be worse than anything they'd faced before. 5 months later, the threat remained unidentified, but Andrea had surrounded Renata with so many layers of protection that even the shadows felt safe. The estate had become a fortress. Every employee was vetted thrice. Every entrance was monitored by systems that didn't officially exist. Within those walls, life continued. And on a spring morning, as flowers bloomed in the garden where Andrea had first knelt before her, their son was born. The delivery. Andrea was there for every moment, holding her hand, counting her breaths, telling her she was the strongest person he'd ever known. When the baby's cry finally pierced the room, both of them wept. He's perfect, Renata whispered. The doctor placed the infant in her arms. Dark hair, dark eyes, tiny fingers that wrapped around Andrea's thumb. He looks like you, she said. He looks like us. Andrea stared at the child, at the life they'd created together, at the future that suddenly felt possible. Salvatore, he said quietly. Renata looked up. After your father? If you agree. She smiled. Salvatore Volpini. She tested the name. It's perfect. Andrea leaned down, kissed his wife, then kissed his son's forehead. Welcome to the family, Piccolo. I promise you, no matter what comes, no matter who threatens us, you will never know fear. You will never know want. His voice hardened with absolute certainty. And you will never be alone. 1 year later, the mysterious enemy was found. It took Lorenzo's team 18 months, 4 continents, and resources that didn't appear on any official ledger. But eventually the threads converged. A single name, Elena Marchetti, the senator's daughter. The woman who had watched Andrea at the gala so long ago. The woman everyone had dismissed as irrelevant. She had been the puppet master all along. The confrontation. Andrea met her alone. Not for revenge, though he'd earned that right, but for answers. She waited in a safe house outside Milan. surrounded by guards who didn't know they were already neutralized, confident in her power, until he walked in. "You?" she breathed. "Me." He sat across from her. No wheelchair, no weapons, just himself. "Why?" Elena's laugh was brittle. "Because you were supposed to be mine." Her eyes burned. "Before the attack, before your father's death, our families had arranged a marriage. Did you know that?" Andrea's expression didn't change. "I suspected. I loved you." Her voice cracked. "And then they shot you and you became that. A broken thing in a chair. Useless. Pathetic. So you abandoned the arrangement." "My father abandoned it. I was given to someone else." Her jaw tightened. "But I never stopped watching you. Never stopped wanting you. And when you realized I could walk again, I realized you'd tricked everyone, including me." Her eyes glistened. "You let me believe you were destroyed while you rebuilt your empire in secret. You married that nobody while I was trapped in a loveless arrangement. So you tried to destroy my wife, my family, my life. I tried to wake you up." She leaned forward. "She doesn't deserve you, Andrea. She never did. I was supposed to be. You were supposed to be nothing." His voice cut like steel. "Our fathers made arrangements. That's all they were, arrangements. I never loved you. I never wanted you. And even if I had," his eyes hardened, "the moment you threatened my wife, you became my enemy." "Andrea, this is over, Elena. Your resources are frozen. Your allies are scattered. Your father will die in prison. And you," he stood, "you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that you lost, that I chose someone else, that your obsession destroyed you." He walked to the door, paused. "Renata sends her regards." Elena screamed. The sound followed him out. 5 years later, the estate had grown. New wings for new additions. A second son, Marco, born 2 years after Salvatore. A daughter, Lucia, named for the woman who had betrayed them because Andrea believed in redemption the following spring. 3 children, 1 wife, a love that had survived deception, danger, and demons. The anniversary, they returned to the garden. The same roses, the same arbor, the same spot where he'd knelt before her all those years ago. "You're nostalgic today," Renata observed. "I'm grateful today." He turned to face her. "Do you know what I think about when I look at our life now?" "What?" "That night at the altar. The first wedding. When everyone whispered and laughed and assumed you were making the worst mistake of your life." She smiled. "I remember. I wanted to stand so badly." His voice roughened. "I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to show you that I was worth choosing. And now," he pulled her close, "now I realize I didn't need to stand. You chose me anyway. You saw me anyway." His lips brushed her forehead. "That's worth more than any display of power." She wrapped her arms around him. "I love you, Andrea Volpini. Every version of you. The man in the wheelchair. The man who stood. The man who kneels before me every night and tells me I'm the best thing that ever happened to him. Because you are. Flatterer. Truth-teller." She laughed. He kissed her. And in the distance, 3 children's voices echoed through the estate. Playing, arguing, living. 10 years after the wedding, the cathedral held its breath. But not with mockery, with awe. The ceremony. Salvatore Volpini, 10 years old, dark-haired and serious, stood at the altar beside his father. The occasion was a vow renewal. Andrea's idea. "One more time," he told Renata. "Once more in front of everyone. So our children see what love looks like when it's chosen." The words. Andrea stood at the altar. No wheelchair. No deception. Just himself. 15 years ago, I was shot in this house by men who wanted to destroy me. I survived barely. I spent 5 years hiding my strength because I believed it was the only way to win. He looked at Renata. "I was wrong." She smiled. "The real victory wasn't standing again. Wasn't defeating my enemies. Wasn't rebuilding my empire." His voice cracked. "The real victory was her. Finding her. Choosing her. Being chosen by her." He turned to face the assembly. Family, friends, the children who represented their future. Everyone in this room knows my story. The crippled billionaire who fooled the world. The man who rose from his wheelchair and claimed his power. His jaw tightened. But that's not the story I want remembered. He reached for Renata's hand. I want you to remember this. I was broken. Truly broken. Not in body, in spirit. And she healed me. Not with medicine. Not with therapy. With presence. With patience. With a love I didn't deserve but she gave anyway. He looked into her eyes. You are my victory, Kara. My legacy. My forever. Renata's tears fell freely. And you, she whispered, are everything they laughed at, everything they underestimated, everything they swore would never amount to anything. She touched his face. You are mine. He kissed her. The cathedral erupted in applause. And somewhere in the crowd, 3 children, the future of the Volpini name, watched their parents and understood. Love wasn't about power. It was about choosing power together. The end. They laughed when she married the crippled billionaire mafia boss. They stopped laughing when he stood. They fell silent when they saw what his love had built. And they never forgot the woman who saw him first, not as broken, but as becoming. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more cinematic tales of dark romance, obsessive love, and the power that rises from the ashes of underestimation.